Hello, welcome to Bob's Dungeon. My name is Bob. I will be your host. This video is my first look at Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. 4th edition is kind of a strange edition to talk about. When it came out, what is now known as the Edition Wars went into swing full effect. Lots of people really did not like this edition of Dungeons & Dragons. And it's kind of a hard edition to wrap your head around sometimes. But that's how it is. When I got mine, it was early on when it came out, so I picked mine up with a case with all 3 copies of the core rules. Kind of a nifty thing to have. But at any rate, let's start taking a look at this game by starting with what you need to play this game. To play this game, you will need a copy of all 3 core rule books, which consist of the Player's Handbook, which is what we will be talking about in this video, the Dungeon Master's Guide, which we will talk about in the next video, and the Monster Manual, which we will also talk about in the next video. So let's start with the Player's Handbook. The Player's Handbook has 317 pages and a copyright of 2008. It was published by Wizards of the Coast. The artwork in this book is in full color. And in my opinion, the artwork in this edition of Dungeons & Dragons is just gorgeous. So let's just take a quick look at that artwork now. All of the artwork in this edition of Dungeons & Dragons is in full color. The artwork in this edition is quite stunning to look at. All of the artwork goes a long way to providing a very good feel for the game. It even includes some full-page pictures for the artwork. One of the first things that this book covers, once you start looking into it, it gives you several options on generating your character's attributes. The attributes themselves in this edition are just the same as the attributes in the previous editions. They consist of strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. After that, you'll want to pick a race. The races in this book have changed from earlier editions of Dungeons & Dragons. The races now consist of the Dragonborn, the Dwarves, the Eladrin, the Elves, the Half-Elves, the Halflings, the Humans, and the Tieflings. The other races that appeared regularly in the previous editions do appear in other player handbooks they released for this edition, but we'll cover those in another video. After that, you'll want to pick a class. Classes have also changed dramatically in this edition. They got rid of a few of the classes that are considered standard in Dungeons & Dragons and replaced them with some other classes. The classes in this edition of Dungeons & Dragons consist of the Cleric, the Fighter, the Ranger, the Rogue, the Warlock, the Warlord, and the Wizard. Multi-classing is available, but it's not multi-classing. It's a far cry from multi-classing. Basically, the way it works in this system, when you gain a feat, you can take one of the special abilities from another class and add it to your own, and that's considered multi-classing in this edition. I really don't like that. But what can you do? Each of the classes in this version of Dungeons & Dragons are given a specific purpose in the group. There are a few different things each class fall under. There are some that are considered defenders, others are considered leaders, others are considered strikers, and others are considered controllers. And this is pretty much your role within the group. Each class has listed with it what they are. In previous editions of Dungeons & Dragons, your characters have special abilities that they gain at different levels. You still gain those abilities, but now they're not referred to as abilities anymore. They are called powers. And there are 3 types of powers in this game. The powers are at will, encounter, and daily. And it's self-explanatory how often you can use them by their name. The wizards, they don't necessarily have spells. All their spells are now powers, which is weird because all of the special combat moves that fighters get at different levels are also considered powers. In order to really get the full potential out of your powers, you have to have magical items, especially when you start dealing with the more powerful ones, which is weird. After that, you'll want to pick an alignment for your character. The alignments in this version of Dungeons & Dragons have changed dramatically. There are now only 5 alignments, whereas in previous editions you had 9 alignments. The alignments are good, lawful, evil, chaotic evil, and unaligned. That's it. Frankly, I like the old alignment system better, but this one still works pretty good, if completely different. As your character gains levels, the book takes you all the way up to 30 levels, whereas in previous editions they usually stuck with around 20. Every 10 levels for each class is known as a tier. The first 10 levels are referred to as the heroic tier. The next 10 levels are known as the paragon tier, and the final tier is known as the epic tier. And that's kind of neat, I guess, if different. This book also has a chapter on equipment, so you can arm your character. There's not a lot of chapters in this for magic and spells because there are no spells in this edition. They do have a chapter on rituals. Magic, the wizards, instead of having actual spells, they now have their powers, and they have rituals. Rituals kind of work like the spells of old, only they take a lot longer, and they don't use spell slots or anything like that, which is kind of neat. They kind of carried that over later on, but we'll talk about that in another video. The skills have gone through a huge change in this edition. They work pretty much the same as in 3rd edition, only there's fewer skills and so forth. Feats function pretty much exactly the same, only they just kind of come off to me as feeling as an added thing that's not needed because of the way the classes work now. Maybe that's just me. Other than that, there's really not much more I can think of to say about Player's Handbook in this edition without kind of going on with a big long line of complaints. But I'm going to be fair. With as much as this edition got wrong with the characters, there's a lot I think they did right. I like the fact that they included new classes for you to choose at character creation and new races for you to choose at character creation. A lot of the else in this one falls flat for me, but we'll talk more about how I really feel about Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition when I talk about the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual in the next video. Thank you for joining me at this quick look at what's inside the Player's Handbook for 4th edition. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye.